Let's talk about consistency. It's super, super important to make sure that your CV design and the way you formatted and presented your CV is consistent. Now, that's because even today, I know we're in a modern world, but even today, the CV can be and is often treated as a representation of you. Perhaps one of the worst things you can do is start a CV off with a big detailed summary saying, I am an extremely hard worker and I've got huge attention to detail. I have seen this, by the way, right, on a TikTok live. Then we come into the next section, which in this CV was education. Education had a typo. It was eduation. The reader here can't help but make a judgment on you. If they happen to read the bit that says huge attention to detail, okay, well, not here though. Not here. So inconsistent CVs can, so especially in formatting, now you might, right, so it can have a terrible effect. You might think this is ridiculous. You might think that's not very fair. That's not sensible. That's not a professional approach. Well, it's all we've got to go on often. Right, we may have looked at your LinkedIn and we may have met you, but usually when it comes to CV, it's all we've got to go on, right? And it's the standard we're using. Now, I think in time we'll have different systems and approaches. You can see LinkedIn is coming up there as being used as a standardized approach for assessing or getting an idea of candidates, right? But it's still very much CV that matters. So please, 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 consistency, right? It reflects on you. It can reflect on you. Let me give you some examples, okay? So I'll bring up my template that we were looking at here, and I'm going to do some horror with it, okay? So here we go. Now, what will start to wind people up is this kind of thing. So what I'm doing here is just moving the bullet points ever so, right? Okay, and then I'm going to actually just go in and change that bullet point from a dot to that. Not just, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to move that back. That's not going to have a bullet point, okay? And then I'm going to put a comma in there. But now, if you zoom in, what I'm going to do is wind up a whole lot of people here by doing that, okay? That just, stuff like this. I'm going to do 01 hyphen with a space there, right? And I'm going to say now. I'll have that lowercase, okay? I'm going to make Tableau lowercase here, right? I've missed out the bullet point here. Then here for September, I'm going to make September 2016 to, I'm going to say 09, right? Okay, and then I'm going to have put two extra spaces there, okay? Actually, and let me also bring that here. Do you see what I'm doing is messing it up, okay? No, I'll need to go back and correct this because I do want a clean copy. But what I'm highlighting here is you will be judged. Whether you're aware of it or not, you're going to be judged on those formatting perspectives, right? So consistency on format, consistency on approach. So if you're going to have 01/2024 as your date format, use that throughout, okay? Because your ability to present a consistent CV is also going to be interpreted as someone that can do that in a Word document. So when you're writing or presenting on behalf of the company, you can deliver that, right? So whatever style you choose, make it consistent, okay? So if you're going to have the company name in bold and size 16 in this template, then make sure every company name is bold, size 16. If you're going to make sure they're left justified, keep it left justified and don't have them moving, right? This stuff here, right, where you'll see bullet points that are merged. Oh, hey, I forgot a really important one, which is just to change the font, right? That's another thing that people will often do. You'll see a different font here, right? Now, often you'll see this because they've cut and pasted it and forgot, right? Very useful when you're analyzing CVs. Do not work really carefully. And look, a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at my CV. I had to send CVs out to clients when they're thinking about hiring me. And I realized I had not, it wasn't a typo, but just, it was essentially a typo. Jeez. Probably the biggest thing you can do wrong on a CV, forget formatting, it's typos. And I had done something like, let me just zoom in a little bit here. It was something like, then. It was the wrong. I just put in a, or I'd been messing around. I'd taken something out and then not read the whole thing again. And here I am busy telling you about CVs. Okay, it happens to the best of us, right? I'm omitting it just to show you. Okay, it's embarrassing, right? But so make sure that typos, you shouldn't have any typos. Press F7, spell check, spell check, spell check, spell check, spell check. Use grammar check, download and install Grammarly, right? For example, or all these other systems. Use ChatGPT, stick your CV into ChatGPT and say, can you see any how would you make this better? Can you see any grammatical challenges? How would you improve the formatting, etc., or whatever, right? And then last but not least is just give it to somebody else and ask them, so another human that you know, and say, can you just read this? So for example, my wife is really good, really good. I just go, what does that say? And that's because I'm usually using all sorts of complicated language in my CV, and I don't understand that, and it'll be because I made a typo or something. So have someone else look at your CV before you send it out, right? At least version 1, okay? As you're improving it, changing it, modifying it, no worries, but version 1, just make sure there's nothing silly in there, okay? So for consistency, formatting, make sure format is consistent. Make sure the words and the phrases you're using are consistent across so please, consistency matters, right? It can reflect on you and it can impact whether you get the job or not. Check for typos, certainly check for spelling mistakes and grammatical mistakes. And then the format consistency, that's important. And by the way, that's why on my CVs, I always use standard. I use the word standard because then when I'm cutting and pasting, it just works, right? I don't like to tweak stuff because then all of a sudden you're into challenges later on for formatting. I want it to be super simple and easy. So that's my approach, but please think carefully about making sure everything in your document is consistent.